Hi, my name is Francine and I have ovarian cancer. We don't know how long I have, so my job right now is to make every day count. Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Today, I wanted to address a question that I do get fairly frequently, and that's about coping. How do I cope knowing that I'm going to die? So that is about fear and anxieties. And if you're new to my channel, I really appreciate that you're here. I hope you get something from it, especially if you are newly diagnosed or if you're a caretaker, because caretakers need to know at least as much about the people that they're giving care to as the patients themselves. So I decided to sort of do this without scripting because, it doesn't really change the facts, and I'm pretty good at just going off the cuff here when it comes to my cancer. So I went through a couple of different stages of cancer. And what I mean is that I had different diagnoses. I started off with, 20 plus years ago, it was really about, oh, you have a cyst. And, they never mentioned cancer until there was actually a diagnosis after my hysterectomy. And coping then, I don't know. I think in some ways it was easier because I was around 40 and I just knew I wasn't going anywhere. Sometimes you just know in your heart, you just know. It was non-negotiable. So coping was just marching forward. I mean, yeah, it knocks you down when you're first diagnosed. And, you play the what if game all the time. And overthinking things can be a bit much, but that's going to happen the first week or two, for sure. And you've got to give yourself that space and that ability to do that. But then there comes a time when you're like, okay, I need to deal with this a little differently now because I've come to that stage of acceptance. Whether you're going to fight it or whether you're not going to fight it, there's still an acceptance stage that, you have this disease. So I think the first time, as difficult as it was in the beginning, I coped fairly well. And, a good support system is very important. And I don't mean just doctors. I mean, your husband or your spouse or your family in general and the friends around you. The first time around, I lived in Virginia, and that wasn't my home really. I was close to my brother at that point, but I didn't have a lot of friends there. So fast forward to the second time around, I was diagnosed in 2023. Yeah, 2023 with a recurrence. And this time I wasn't so confident. In fact, I kind of knew it was happening before I was diagnosed. And I kind of knew I wasn't going to be so lucky this time. And if you are new to my channel, once again, welcome. I am also a clairvoyant medium, and I've done grief counseling for very many years, probably 35 or more. And, I don't work so much now because of it. But the reason I bring that up, because it is relevant, I've been dealing with death all my life, sort of as a death doula at times. And some of the patients that were terminal I knew and counseled their families. So I'm not a stranger to it, but that doesn't mean that I'm not vulnerable and that I don't still have all of those feelings. I think a lot of people say, why don't you cry? I mean, on camera. I don't cry too much off camera either. And I think it's because I came to that acceptance stage a lot sooner. Now, whether you're going to be a warrior and work through a battle, or whether you're going to make peace with it the way I have, then, I think that wherever you're at, you are reacting. And it's okay to react any way you want. There's no rules here. That's very, very important, because there's a catch-all kind of coping mechanism within us, but we're all going to do it differently, just like grief or happiness or any other emotion. So I can only draw on my own experience and experiences that I've read about that can be effective for a lot of people. And when I was diagnosed this time around, there were moments of, I'm going to go through the motions, but I'm not sure I'm going to make it. I had the chemo, didn't work. I had the surgery, didn't work. I had a chemo agent in the pill form. Side effects were so bad that they took me off it. And I've just decided no more, because another chemo agent pill was the only other thing that they could offer me at this point. And they also have the same side effects. So I'm just not interested in that last one. And I'm not looking for anything at this point as far as treatments. So keep your ivermectin and, all that stuff. And I appreciate that you think of me, but, I'm good. I mean, if there's nothing out there that I haven't researched myself, nothing. And that's another coping mechanism. Get involved. Don't put your head in the sand. We're going to have a little self-pity party, and that's fine. Just don't make it too long. And then get on your feet and make a decision. And I think whether you're coping with, the inevitable passing, that you're not going to be here any longer, that you're going to miss your family, and those things are just so natural. And we're all going to react naturally to them. But there are things that you can do to lessen that anxiety and that fear. One of them for me is prayer and meditation. And I say that like that because it's a little bit of a combination. I believe that they are really one and the same. And I think that a connection is better made through meditation. One of the things I do every morning when I get up, and I hadn't done this before the diagnosis, it was specifically after the diagnosis of terminal, after I'd done the chemo and the surgery. And so what I do now is I meditate just maybe 30 seconds before I get up in the morning, before I put my feet on the floor. I thank God. And I just sit still quietly. And I don't ask for anything. I just want to express gratitude that I woke up this morning, and I'm going to make it a good day if I can. My goal of making every day count is another coping mechanism, is to find joy in every day, even if every day isn't quite so joyous. There's always something you can find. And I try not to dwell in negativity. And this whole world right now there's a lot of negativity going on. And I'd like to say I steer away from the news, but I almost can't. I don't recommend that you do what I do, but I seem to have to see what's going on. And I know that's not so good for me. And I don't think that's really good coping mechanism. But in spite of a negative world, I need to find some positivity. And so this is all mental and emotional kind of grounding. And grounding is important. Staying in reality, but also realizing that there are other parts of life to enjoy. And whether it is the battle where you're just going to get through this treatment and one and done, it does change your life. You cope with things permanently in a different way. And I remember being so grateful the first time when the chemo and the surgery apparently worked. I say apparently because the recurrence is because they didn't quite get it all. It's just slow growing. But being so grateful that what I did was I continued to appreciate life after that, realizing life can be short at any point. There's no promises. And we're all going to leave at one point. We don't get out of here any other way. So I stayed grateful, but I was a little skittish when it came to making longer term plans because, I don't know if I want to invest in a cruise or, I had to spend all my money on medical bills first. But, at some point you don't want to look at a lot of long-term kind of goals because you're afraid you won't make it. You won't be able to finish those projects. And I feel very strongly about completing what I start kind of thing. I'm just like that type A personality. So I think it's important to stay realistic. At the same time, don't give up the idea of that cruise, and I'm getting ahead of myself. This is for when you're beyond, you're going to be here a while, that you've been successful with this cancer journey and you get your life back for the most part. And then eventually I basically started making plans and, you always walk around with a question mark over your head, but you don't have to cope with it so much anymore. You just are reminded that on occasion that, you just never know when the other shoe is going to drop, or it could be something else. I could have died from my diabetes, could have been complications or other things. So I think that eventually you just kind of forget. So I did feel a little sucker punched when, I was diagnosed with the recurrence, even though I kind of knew it was coming just based on my symptoms. So knowing it was terminal at that point, I knew my coping skills had to change because I was coping with something different now. Those distractions I needed to cope were about planning my passing. I don't have all my funeral arrangements made, but I wanted to make sure I got things out of the way and things that my husband didn't have to deal with. So that kind of was concentrated in a way that every day I had all this to do. And so I didn't have time to think about having cancer or dying. And then there was research about the dying process. How did I want to go if I had control over it, which entered Death with Dignity and the MAID program. So then I was busy researching that and went up to Vermont a couple of times and then had to deal with plan B because it was always a what if game. What if that doesn't work or I'm too sick? And so then it was about finding a local hospice and interviewing them and visit. And then there was counseling for anticipatory grief for me and the family. And so there was a lot to do. And it really was because I didn't know how much time there was, and neither did or does the oncologist. But you want to be prepared. So I was so busy doing that, I wasn't coping with anything. Really wasn't. I can't say that was coping. It was just like, I don't have time to cope with this stuff. I've got to do this. And then everything that could be done had been done. I did everything that I could do. And then I got tired. I was just like, I'm sure that my husband was tired of talking about it, but I also know that he understood. So I sort of let that go. And I started focusing more on my YouTube videos, which has been great for coping. Absolutely great. If you have a hobby or something else like that, or if you have a cancer journey going on, I recommend documenting it. And I have many more friends here in Pennsylvania where I am now than I had in Virginia the last time around. But then adding all these YouTube acquaintances, I really appreciate the comments and all that stuff. So that's a bit of a distraction and a way to cope because I'm dealing with the topic directly. And, making videos like this really is healing for me on an emotional and a spiritual level. And I'm still seeing a few clients here and there and dealing with other people's problems, I guess, is a way to cope with my own. Sometimes I realize how lucky I am. I mean, I know I'm lucky to be here I'm lucky to be here and feel okay or have as many good days as I do have. But there are still some bad days and I have to deal with them. And some of them are physically not feeling well. Some of them are a mental and emotional break that I need to take. And when I have those, I can cope with physical ailments with a bottle of pills or whatever, right? Emotionally and mentally, I think I'm doing okay, but I did enter talk therapy with someone. I've had a few sessions and I definitely recommend that as well. Now, I'd already gone through the anticipatory grief. This is more about a reflection of my life and wanting to make sure that I have processed previous pains, current pains. So I don't have necessarily a goal for therapy, but it feels good to talk to someone in a confidential setting. And I definitely recommend that as a really strongly recommend that as a coping skill that you can have in your little toolbox. And I think that if you are one that meditates or does yoga or does anything to center and balance yourself, I definitely recommend that. If you're a religious person, then I recommend that you follow that path and let the church help you, if that's your thing. And I think if you have strong family ties, and they love you very much, and you should definitely lean on that. There are times people don't want to hear about it all the time because there are people that have problems dealing with losing someone. So keep that in mind as well. I'm not saying burden the ones that don't mind it. You still have to be mindful because we don't want to bring other people down. But you don't have to be the hero either. It's just basically fact. I can just tell somebody about my tests, the results, and my doctor's appointments or whatever. But one thing that a coping skill is not is pushing your problems on everybody. So not that I sit in talk therapy and I talk about appointments. I don't. That's not the purpose of it. But if that's something you needed, then that would also be a place that you could do that. I think it's important to know that as long as you're feeling okay, live your life to the fullest. Live your life as if you don't have cancer. Love everyone to the fullest. Living your life as usual can be a coping tool. However, you don't want to go into denial. You don't want to push people away when they ask how you're doing. Oh, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Because there are people who don't want to talk about it. And I'm not talking about family members. I'm talking about the person that has cancer. So if you are someone asking someone else how they're feeling, just understand if you get short answers, there's a reason for that. Not everybody can deal with losing someone else, and not everybody can deal with being in the position of terminal illness. It's a hard place to be, very hard. And if you're asking someone how you're feeling, just don't take it personally because you already don't know what to say. And they're not giving you any cues. So I've seen that happen. There are people who don't want to talk about anything about their wishes or, and that's having the death talk is so hard. That's going to be another video that I'm going to do. It's actually probably going to be a 2 or 3 part series because it's so important that we normalize death. And I know that I'm getting off topic a little bit, but if we worked on our coping skills and our fears and our anxieties about it, then maybe we could have those conversations. Maybe somebody could tell you what they want at the end of life, instead of you coming to somebody like me and asking, did I do the right things? Okay, whole different topic. going off point, sorry, but it's very related. I guess it's not a whole different topic. I don't know. I'm not editing that. So I would really love if you would comment below and tell me, your thoughts on this. If you have cancer, which I know a lot of my viewers do, tell me how you cope with fear and anxiety. And perhaps you sharing that below will help some other people, because I can't think of all the answers. I'm only drawing on my experience. I know things that are not good coping skills too, but that's another focus, that's like eating skills. I have those, but I had to stop. Really wasn't helping. So it's important, though. This is a very important topic, especially for people that were newly diagnosed. And, I want you to know that you never have to be alone on this journey. And you may find some articles online about this. I'm sure there are many. And maybe you can look at what would work for you. I wish you the best on your journey, if that's where you're at now. And I wish the caregivers in the world all the best. I know it's not an easy position to be in, especially if you feel like you're not being appreciated, because that does happen on occasion, but really, God appreciates you. And sometimes when we have people we take care of that are, in their own little bubble, it's fear, it's anxiety. And sometimes we just can't break through that. Okay, so while you're commenting down below, I appreciate that you also hit that like button and you hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and then go back and hit that subscribe button again to make sure that little bell is black, because that means you'll be alerted to my next videos. Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you all, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.